Founded in 2004, Egyptian Orphanage Day is celebrated in April every year. It was originally organized by Dar al-Orman, one of the largest charitable organizations in Egypt, to remind society of the country's many orphans forced to grow up parentless. In a country with a population of over 84 million, there are around 1.5 million orphans, 40,000 of whom are in the streets, and the rest are either cared for by foster families or orphan places. In Islam, the concept of child adoption does not exist, while Muslims are ordered to take care of orphans. Islamic law stipulates that an orphan must take the family name of the biological father. Foster parents can support the child financially and raise him or her in their home. Even when an orphan is lucky enough to be taken in by a loving family or orphanage, however, the time will come when he or she must inevitably face the world alone. Orphanage managers complain that the society considers orphans of a lower category, adding that there needs to be assistance that eases their integration into society. As a result, the adjustment to life outside is not always smooth. From a relatively sheltered life, adopted children often face the social stigma they received at birth, which can result in a lack of acceptance and respect. The day has been criticized ever since its inception, National Orphans Day. The criticism centered on its title for overemphasizing a fact already well known to the children, that they are without parents. A related criticism concerns the nature of the event itself. On a day that is supposed to center on the orphans, some argue organizations place themselves in the forefront, thus adding to the orphan's sense of abandonment. However, orphanages say they rely on donations, and the only way to let people know about orphanages is advertising. Some orphanages complain that the Ministry of Social Affairs, which see the advertisements, assume they are squandering funds. They say that yet for every pound spent on advertising, they receive at least 5 pounds. As factual as it is, orphanages are in constant need for money to accommodate the children's needs. And while some orphanages may view the children as a commodity, others strive to see them smile, and they should receive all the help the ministry can provide.
And joining us tonight for the last segment of tonight's program is engineer Leila Qinawi. She is the president of Rotaract Cairo Royal. Thank you very much for coming in. Of course, we're talking about Orphans Day. It's the 10th anniversary this year. Tell me a little bit more about the day. It started 10 years ago, and how much of a success has it been?
Orphans Day is an important day to celebrate. It's celebrated on the first Friday of April every year. Has been introduced a few years ago, as you have mentioned, and it's a really important day because it highlights the issue that is a very important issue. We're talking about more than 1.5 million children in Egypt that are considered orphans, and it assists a lot of NGOs who are taking care of the children to raise their funds, as well as highlight the issue in the public and perhaps conclude to some solutions for it.
So tell me, how are NGOs, especially your NGO, for example, how are you contributing to the day and to the concept of helping orphans in the country?
As a Rotaract, we are an organization of around 40 clubs in Egypt, and all of us aim to celebrate the day, but not only the day in April. We do events with orphans throughout the year, making sure that they get their share of affection and love as well as education. So our club, for instance, will not be celebrating on the first Friday of April. We're choosing the third Friday of April to celebrate in order to give the chance for other NGOs, for instance, to work with the same orphanage we're working with, as well as have enough time to plan, for instance. We'll be having a very special day on the 19th. We're working together with an orphanage called La Femme Nouvelle. It's an orphanage embedded in another NGO aiming to empower women. So all 150 orphans are young ladies or children from the age of 4 to until they get married, actually, in that
fantastic.
orphanage. We are preparing a whole day of fun and learning on the 19th. We'll be having events such as face painting and egg coloring because it's near to Easter. We'll also be teaching them how to brush their teeth. Last year, for instance, we cooperated with pediatric dentistry organization in Egypt who contributed with toothpaste and posters and toothbrushes, and as well as some volunteer doctors who taught the small girls how and why to brush their teeth in a really, really fun matter. We got sponsors for soap, for instance, who will teach the girls how to wash their hands properly and the importance of personal hygiene for your own health. And in the end, these young ladies and children and women will be the mothers of tomorrow and the leaders, perhaps, of tomorrow who need to learn such small skills. But in addition to that, we also encourage their creativity. So we're doing some painting as well, and we focus as well on their physical fitness. So we do some sports activities such as running games or football. Girls play football and they're really good at it, so we're working on that as well.
Fantastic.
So a whole day of fun and learning with a lot of volunteers and a lot of colors all around.
Okay, that sounds great fun. But is it just a one-off event, or do you try to stay in touch with the orphans throughout the year?
This is an important issue. As Rotaract, we make sure that we're around all year. So we're there in Ramadan, for instance, joining them for an iftar meal. We're there every few months just for a fun day, learning basic manners such as saying please and thank you. That's something you don't learn at school somehow, and you're taught by your parents, and if you don't have parents, someone has to show you how to deal with other people, and sharing, for instance, your toys or your games. So we're there every few months, every 1 month or every 2 months, to play with the children, and just being a role model is sometimes enough for the girls.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit more about the impact, psychological impact, that these events or that reaching out to these girls has on them?
It's amazing when you haven't been there for a month and they see you coming in and they go, Laila, you haven't been here for forever. You promised you'll come. And you would say, I'm sorry, I was busy. On the one hand, you're a role model because you say, I was working, I was busy. On the other hand, you feel the emotional attachment you get by being there every now and then.
Well, has been criticism that, you know, some orphanages are perhaps it's just 1 day a year, and perhaps children get psychologically, you know, hyped up about that particular day. Would you encourage people to actually interact more with orphans on perhaps a more frequent basis?
I definitely would do that. A one-day approach is not sustainable in any manner. So something a whole year-round approach would definitely have a better impact and be more beneficial for orphans. And this is what we try to do, and what most other NGOs do as well. It's of course, the day has to be celebrated because it's named after them, but you have to engage the whole year.
What do you think about, is it enough, though, that the NGOs are trying to help out? Do you think other societal entities, the government, individuals, need to do more for Egypt's orphans?
Of course. There is a lot to be done. We need to start at the beginning and tackle the problem. And
tell me about some of those problems that are being faced at the moment.
The rising number of orphans has a cause, and that has to be solved. But I don't think NGOs will be able to work on that. It will be a government initiative supported by the private sector as well as the NGOs in order to solve the issue. In addition, there's always an issue with funds. There are orphanages that are able to contact the media and have a stronger team, and then they get more funds and are able to get even more funds to support their orphans. But there are others who are do not have that outreach and need the support of the local community, the private sector, as well as the government.
Right.
The government needs to look into that issue. As we said, 1.5 million children who need to go to school, who need health care, and perhaps something like giving them a chance to go to school for free.
Right.
Because orphans actually do pay school fees.
Right.
So this might be an issue that needs to be tackled.
Okay, how would you rate the standard of most orphanages in Egypt? Would you say that they were up to international standards, or do you think they also need financial aid in order for them to provide the children with better needs?
Well, I haven't visited that many orphanages, but in general, even if an orphanage is well equipped and has a good infrastructure, maintenance is a key issue.
Right.
So there are always funds needed for the maintenance of a building, and when you ask for funds or donations, most people say, I want the money donated to the children. So you have a lot of money for the children themselves in terms of food or clothing, but you don't have the funds to maintain the buildings or pay for other running costs.
Right. Okay. So how do you deal with children as well, special needs children, or?
We do that, not always in the context of orphans, but generally. For instance, last month last week, we were joining other Rotaract clubs, such as Rotaract Club of Alexandria Cosmopolitan, and organizing a Down Syndrome Day, raising awareness on the issue, and actually learning ourselves about the issue. Next month we'll be looking into autism, because this is also...
It's very important to raise awareness about these particular
Just raising
problems.
awareness and telling people this is an issue we have, and we have to learn to deal with it, whether we want to or not.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how they can themselves contribute to Orphans Day and how they can take part. What would you suggest? I mean, someone who's the president of Rotaract